Hey, everybody, welcome to All Stars. We're back with Sal and Josh. What's up, man?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm
As
good.
I was warning Sal before, the echo in this new office. I'm slowly moving into my new office. The echo in here is crazy. So when I talk, and I know I talk a lot, you're gonna have a crazy echo while we're here.
The voice of God is here in the show, and it's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
I've heard much more echoey podcasts. I mean, like if you ever hear
Oh,
like a panel that has been recorded from somene's phone or something like that,
yeah.
it's a nightmare. So this is
I
fine.
actually did watch myself on a panel recently because somebody brought it up. They were like, "Oh, someone recorded this panel," and so I saw part of it, and I was like, "Hey, we did a good job." Like, I definitely was like, I was terrified. I was like, "Oh, dude, what if this sucks?" And then I was like, "Oh no, you know what? I'm glad somebody recorded this." Like, I will say that like there are little times when we announced Rebirth years ago. There's a part in that where you can. I've shown it to other people. There's a moment in the Rebirth panel where they gave us all microphones.
Yeah.
And when you were done with the microphone, you were supposed to give it to the next person or somebody else, like in line. And everything was rehearsed. That whole thing was we'd rehearsed it like 3 or 4 times. Spoilers for anybody out there.
No, it was
that
nice.
panel was very important. Yeah, it was very important. We had a lot of books and a little bit of time, and so they wanted to make sure that every character had their thing, and so they didn't want. And but they also, because they knew it was going to be live streamed, they wanted to make sure that everyone felt like they had their moment to speak.
Okay.
And so I had the microphone, and I gave my whole spiel on the Slash, which I had like rehearsed again multiple times, so I knew what to say. And there was a little bit of improv in there, like a little bit of just like talking. Sure. But then when it was over, I had no idea where to put the mic. And so if you actually watch this video, you can literally see me be like, I'm like John Travolta looking at the house, I'm like, you need does somebody need the mic? No?
Right.
All right. And I just like put it down on the ground, and you can see this whole thing happen. You can literally see me, it's like, and somebody else is talking, but you can see me be like, you the mic? No, you? No? All right. And on the ground. It's funny, but the echo, but I'm moving and everything, and I was like, this whole role will be all Absolute Edition, and then I'm gonna have like dedicated areas for each character. I'm not sure if the giant Batman is gonna stay here or not.
Now, is that Batman from the Warner Brothers store? Because it looks very much like it's from the Warner Brothers store.
From the Warner Brothers store, on the Warner Brothers lot. That's where I got that one back.
That's awesome.
Almost 23 years ago, almost. Yeah, it's old. Yeah. There's actually a funny story about that. 20 years ago, I was moving out of an apartment. I dropped it down the stairs.
Oh my God! Was it in the box or was it loose?
Oh no, my friend, it was loose, and it broke. And so, this is a funny thing with this. All right, so it broke 20 years ago, more than 20 years, back in 2001. The summer 2001, it broke.
Ooh, 22.
And I put it in storage. It disappears. I have no idea where it is this whole time. It's like there's a huge crack in it, right?
Yeah.
Huge crack. No idea where it goes. So years and years later, I go visit my dad, and I forget if my dad was in London. He might have been in the States at this point, but I go visit him, and my brother was living there. And I walk by my brother's room, and he has it on his dresser, and I was like, nope, that's mine. And not only do I know it's mine, look at that crack. I know how that crack got there. You can't tell me where that crack got there. And I saw it from a distance, and I'm like, so I was like, listen, you can have it for now. At some point, that is mine.
I'm gonna want that back. Yeah.
On Sunday, this 2 days ago, or a few days ago, right?
Yeah.
It got delivered to my house.
Oh, that's awesome.
Not only delivered to the house, the crack was repaired.
Oh, that's cool.
He was like, not him. No. My dad and my stepmom. She repaired it. She actually repaired it. So that's how I got it back. But yeah, I'm not sure if it's going to stay up there or not. It might get moved someplace else. It's so big that I might end up moving it to one of the other shelves over here or something.
Right, because I know how big certain things on that shelf are, and then I look at that Batman, and I'm like, that must be massive.
Huge. Look at the power battery. The power battery up here, that's a full-size power battery, and it looks tiny compared to...
I have two of them, I know. That handle is
huge.
That handle is so deceptive, because you're like, oh, I'm supposed to hold it by the handle, but the second you do, it's going to pull out and fall.
It breaks. Yeah, it breaks. So in the process of moving my office, I found a bunch of stuff in my office. Some of it was recent, some of it was old. And then I have comics here, but it was really a surreal experience, the stuff that you find in between books on top of shelves. I actually don't have it in here, but when I was going through some of the stuff, I found a first appearance of Spider-Gwen between two hardcovers. So it's like in like super
pristine
shit because it was married between two hardcovers, and I was like,
yeah.
what do I do with this? Like, I immediately was like, do I even have a bag and board? Like, I was like, looking around, and I was like, I think I have a bag and board somewhere. But so for people who watch this show on a monthly basis, and you guys care about continuity, and I told this to Sal when it came in the mail, so Sal already knows about this. The Deadpool poster. I did get the Denville poster. I have no idea where this is going to go. I'm going to unwrap it. This is Joe Mad Deadpool we talked about last time. I think it might go over here, but yeah, this is in here. This was mailed to me by somebody who used to work for DC. It is the original Reign of Superman poster.
Oh.
It's that gigantic one with all of them on there. It's huge. I haven't unpacked it yet. I still have no idea where this is going to go. There's no room in here. I mean, the walls in here are going to be wall-to-wall. Either posters, bookshelves, or original art.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
Where am I going to put a gigantic?
Dude, I had the exact same. I purchased.
We talked before. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, as you can see, but like I for no reason whatsoever, I got a great deal on it. I've picked up the Worlds Collide Superman and Milestone crossover poster.
Dude, yes, yeah.
Which is the size of a small car, and I took it to like a Michael's. I was like, hey, how much would it cost to like frame? Because I looked up frames. There are no frames. Like there are no frames. There are no regular frames. They were like, oh yeah. And I found all these deals. Like I chipped it down by $200, and they were like, the final tally be $400 to frame it. And I was like, okay, well this will stay. This will be a square under something forever. Like it's never going anywhere.
I have. Let's see with this. I have this. Do you remember they made a giant poster of this? The Alex Ross, George Perez poster.
Crisis.
Yeah. I had this. I don't know where it is now. I had this as the giant one, like the lithograph, and I went through the same thing of like, do I frame this? And the answer is no, I don't. This is actually signed by Mark Wolfman though too. This one.
Oh, cool.
I have it signed twice. I found this in my office. So at conventions, and this is again a convention thing we can talk about. So at conventions, they give you these little placards next to your name.
Yes.
And I used to keep all of them. And then one time, so I have a lot of them. I have like a really big one for Flash that we did. Nice. Once you start getting them, you're like, where do I put this? Like, it's kind of cool at first, and then you're just like, I literally don't know where to put this now. The one time I did, I gave up on keeping them at some point. But it started, the reason why I stopped was because Tom King and I did a signing at San Diego Comic-Con at the booth. And it was a good one. It was like a great signing. And at the end of it, Tom it was a shared one for both him and I. And it was had Batman and Robin on it from the button. He took it, he signed it, and he was like, sign this. And I was like, what are you doing? He's like, sign this. And so I signed it, and like he like threw it into the crowd.
What?
And I was like, well, yeah, dude. Yeah. So I was like, that was whoever caught that, I'm like, that's a one of a kind.
Yeah.
Like, we don't repeat them. You know, they either trash them or we keep them.
That's really cool.
I think sometimes they put them in a box somewhere, but it's a one of a kind. So that means that whoever that person was, they got like a nice little one of a kind thing.
I hope they appreciate those things. Yeah. Like,
they might like, you know, San Diego Comic-Con. They're handing so much free shit, like so much of that stuff gets in the trash anyway.
Exactly.
Did you know at San Diego Comic-Con, when you do giveaways, you're not allowed to give away stickers?
Yes.
And
yes.
You know why?
Because they could stick them on the venue floor.
Yeah, everywhere.
Yeah.
You go into the bathroom at the end of the con, and there just be
urinals.
stickers.
Boom. They're everywhere. Absolutely.
Yeah, it would be impossible to clean, so they stop people giving away stickers. I got this. These are all things I found in my office when I was cleaning, like randomly in the bookshelves. And so one of them was this. It's like a Chris Samnee original piece of art. It's a pretty cool drawing. This is from 2018. It's like Bruce looking out the window, but the window is the shape of a bat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I found my signed copy of Hitman #1.
Oh, nice.
Signed by Garth Ennis and John McCree. This is like an important book to me, and so I was really happy when I was like digging through stuff and I found it. I'm like, this is gonna go, and I'll probably put this on the shelf or something.
Yeah.
Now this is sort of funny. This is the Marvel Knights tour book guide from 1998 that they did at San Diego Comic-Con. This thing is super cool. Here's the funny thing about this: it has 3 signatures on it, and I'm like, one of those Joe Quesada clearly is this one right here, clearly Joe Quesada.
Yeah.
This is clearly Jimmy Palmiotti. I
Right.
could not figure out who this third one was. That's right here. I could not figure it out. And I'm like, that looks like a K and an S. Like,
Okay.
but I have no memory of Kevin Smith signing this. I remember getting it signed by Jimmy and Joe.
Yeah.
And so I looked up Kevin Smith's signature. It's 100% Kevin Smith's
Oh yeah, it's
signature.
a K line, S line. I know that signature well. I'll bet he signed it already. I'll bet it already came.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
Signed.
I'm gonna email Jimmy and ask him because I'm like, it's just so weird because I can clearly remember those guys like sitting there signing it, and it's like it's back when conventions were a little bit of a different experience, especially San Diego was so much smaller, and you could just like the line for a creator was a little more rare.
So short. I remember. Yeah, I didn't know.
Yeah,
when I started, my first convention was New York Comic Con 2006. So it was, and it was awesome. And it was like, I remember people going who were in their like 50s, 60s who were like, oh, it's so corporate. This is so crowded. And if you compare that to any con in the last 3-5 years, it's like, are you out of your mind? Like this was amazing. Like, no, I had access to everybody. But that I'll bet now you got that book. I assume it was like Marvel had them. Like it was just like stacks of them.
And they had a little table with the Marvel Knights banner, but it was weird because Marvel Knights is such a fascinating thing, and I might speak out of turn here. Started. How would I put this? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I think before Marvel, a bit of an attitude of like they're over there.
Ah, yes.
The same way Ultimates was in the beginning, where it was like, oh, that's that side project, not this thing that became incredibly important. Right. I think, and so the Marvel booth was this big thing, but then they had this like smaller Joe sitting there. And so I remember walking over and talking to them and then signing it, and then leaving. I remember clearly like talking to them about it. But yeah, it was like it was still a big banner. I mean, it was a big banner, but it's not like if you went back in time and you were like, listen, everybody, Marvel Knights is going to be huge. You need to like triple the size of this section. You need to
exactly.
But you could tell it was like, but a lot of conventions were like that. I mean, even the DC booth was like very small at that time in San Diego. I remember it being like, it was sprawling, but everything was shorter.
Yeah.
Like I remember getting that Hitman sign because it was, that's 98. Because 99, I remember going again. That's where I went for like Sunday, I think. But yeah, like it was much more, I don't know, it was quieter and you could wait in line for like maybe 5-10 minutes. Yeah.
Now, did you, because I went in, again, 06 before that, and I had only been to San Diego one time, and it was last year. So I have no recollection. I have no experience or familiarity with. Man. Yeah, no, it's true.
You never told me that before. Oh, wow.
No, it was awesome. But I looked at, I got an email from Comic-Con this year, or just a couple days ago, and they were like, you gotta reserve your hotels, and I'm like, I know. And then I went and was like, oh, let me take a look at the hotel that I stayed in last year. And and it was like a very small, very like, over there kind of hotel, $798 a night. That was like,
what hotel was that?
That was the Hotel Stay Pineapple.
Dude, I don't know that one.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I mean, I usually stay. I stay in the same hotel every year. Basically, I have for like I don't even know 15 years, something like that. I started going when I was little. Like I started going to San Diego Comic-Con when I was like, I want to say 14. So I mean, I've gone every year since. Like every year they've had one, except for during the pandemic, and then when they moved it to November one year, like that wasn't the same.
Nope.
But June, July, August. It's always like July or August. When I was younger, they said they would have it in August, but yeah, usually it was usually boom July every year. I have gone, but yeah, hotels. The whole thing is nuts, dude. I mean, you've seen how much it grows and how crazy it's gotten. Yeah, it just gets bigger and bigger, and then it got quieter because like once Twilight left, it kind of like shrunk back down a little bit. But it's still not where it was. I remember going. Like it was relatively easy to get into 20 years ago. Now it's like a whole feeding frenzy just to get tickets and to get in hotels and stuff. That's why whenever DC emails me about the stay in hotels, I email them back immediately.
Like done. Yes.
I'm like, yes, this is what I need. Thank you. These are the dates. Thank you. Like within like 5 minutes I'm on top.
Completely.
Also in here I found behind me. So in my old office, I had all those bookshelves behind me, and I had all these books like tucked above or in between.
Yes,
and that was the stuff that I was kind of finding. And so on top of some of those books, I found The Death of Superman, still shrink wrapped, and then The Return of Superman, still shrink wrapped, and they're actually like in pretty good condition. And the other thing, this might drive you crazy, and some people on this crazy. On top of those absolutes in my office, in my old office, I had all those absolutes behind me, slid on top of one of them. This whole time, I forgot it was there. Is the first appearance of the Punisher.
Oh my god!
Just sitting up there. It was literally just sitting in there the whole time. So every time you and I talk, when somebody look, they can probably see these like little. If they go like zoom in on those absolutes above my head, you can probably see thin little. This little book chilling up there this whole time. I forgot it was up there.
That's so
I couldn't even tell you how long it's been up there.
Right, just at least it was under something, so it wasn't like it was getting light damage the whole time. But
no. I think this is actually okay condition. It's less
looks good
on it and all that stuff. Yeah, it's still pretty good. I'm not a CG-seer. I don't do the slapping thing.
No, I call them little coffins that you can see through. They're like Lenin's tomb. I don't like them.
It feels bad. Listen, they're still alive. Those comics are still alive. But I talk about those people. Like I totally respect people that get the CG stuff. Like, and I understand that, and especially if you are going to flip it at some point.
That's the thing. Like, it's the language you speak in collection. Like, that's if you want to collect, that's what you got to do. You know, for us, it's like I just have them. I just have the book. I want to keep it. I'm not going to. You know, if I ever sell it, it's going to be in a lot where I'm like, my kid needs to go to college. I have to sell everything. You know, I'm not going to do individual slabs.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I was actually thinking about that with the first appearance of Gwen Stacy book, where I'm like, there are comic stuff I know too, where I might just be like, listen, I will trade you this for store credit or something. No, you have to sell it. Like they want to, they're going to want to sell it. They're going to want to slap it and sell it, or just, you know, because when I go to conventions now and I shop around for stuff, and actually one of the things I wanted to ask you about conventions, you know, like when I go around and I look at books, I don't buy anything that's slabbed anymore. Like I'll buy, you know, if I'm buying like, and if I do go out and get something, I usually get like key issues, like first appearances. That's why I collected it when I was a kid, and then I sold my collection. So now I still do that. I go back and I go, okay, I want, you know, that, and that. But it's funny because sometimes you'll see this book and it's like on the pricier side, but then you're at a convention, you're walking, and you'll find like 10 of them. You're just like, that dealer has one, that dealer has one, that dealer has one, and the prices all fluctuate, obviously, because of grading. But at the same time, you're like, I think if there's enough of these on the floor, they're not as rare as you know, we probably thought. Do you ever? Here's my question for you. Because I think there's a lot when I go to conventions. Do you still get books signed?
Oh yeah. Oh no, that's one of my main things that I like to do is get them signed because I like to have like a human connection with the people that I like admire or whose work I really respect. And so like I'll have every convention I have a little list in my Google Keep of like who I want to see and what books I'm going to bring, and my wife too, because I'm like I really wanted to get her back when we first started dating, like 100 years ago. I really wanted to get her like acquainted with the experience and to know these, like I remember taking her to Baltimore Comic-Con for the first time. And we're walking the floor because Baltimore Comic-Con is very much like that kind of show where you just walk around and there's there's Mark Waid, and there's like Garth Ennis. Garth Ennis was very available this past Baltimore Comic-Con. Like it was criminal how like you could be like, hey Garth, I saw you like in a couple hours ago, but like really quick, what was your like did you know a guy like Cassidy when you were growing up? Like just he's right there. And I was like, holy crap. That's Baltimore Comic-Con, but
yeah, that's awesome. I told you how I totally embarrassed myself in front of Garth Ennis one time, right? Because I love Garth Ennis. He's like one of my favorite writers of all time. Yeah, he's awesome. And like Preacher and Hitman, that's why it's like I have that Hitman sign from him. And so one year, and I feel like sometimes when you get to a certain level as a creator, you get embarrassed by going like, I really idolized you when I was young, which is also a whole other thing. If you don't want to be like, I read your comics when I was a little kid, old man. You also want to like walk that line. But with Garth Ennis, I really always loved his work, and I've never been able to like talk to him about it at all. I talked to other people about it. Like I talked to editors who worked on Hitman or Preacher, and we've talked about how much I love those books. And I've like been around Garth Ennis. So I've been like in like, everyone's outside at the hotel bar and we're talking outside, and I've been in like that circle of people.
Yes.
But one time I was at a bar. It was like a you know, kind of a smaller, tighter bar in New York during New York Comic Con, and I had a few drinks. This is a couple years ago. I had a few drinks in me. This might have been 2019.
Okay.
And I'm talking to a couple different creators, and Frank Thierry is there, and like Frank Thierry and I are buddies, and so we were talking, and then he was like, "Oh, by the way, Josh, this is Garth Ennis." You know, Garth, this is Josh, and we shook hands, and I had just enough drinks in me, so I was like, you know what, fuck it, and I was just like, I just want to tell you something. I love you. Like, you were great. I was this whole thing, and you can see Frank's face, like, oh God, what did I do? Like, you can tell Frank was like, I thought you were cool. Why are you doing this to me?
Why are you fanboying
like,
right now?
Why are
man?
you embarrassing me? And then it was like, you can tell Garth was like, dude, I'm just trying to have a pint. Like, what are you doing right now? And I was like, well, when are you gonna get this chance again? It's all good. It's all cool. I actually have this dream. A buddy of mine, we're gonna bring this into Bloodlines. Buddy and I were talking about like dream projects, and I was like, I don't think about dream projects for myself as much anymore as dream projects for other people. And like one of the dream projects I wish we could get is like I would do a 12-issue maxi series, and it would be called Hitman Bloodlines. And it would take place in the middle of Hitman, like somewhere in the middle of him and like Nat the Hat's adventures, right?
Yeah.
And I would be like, okay, we're gonna deal with it. Like, I want you to do a story about the Bloodlines characters and how Tommy had to like do something about it, like crossover, something. Just give me something for 12 issues of him with those characters, because you know Garth Ennis would do like, because of his experience with that story, and the fact that, because you know Hitman wasn't originally intended to launch out of Bloodlines. It was supposed to be separate, and then they were like, it was one of those things, and I've seen this before too, when you're pitching a book and the question becomes, can you spin this out of something?
Right.
And that was one of the questions on that book was, can this spin out of something? And they were like, we have this thing called Bloodlines, and you're already running Demon. I think it was supposed to spin out of Demon, and they were like, well, here's this opportunity.
It came out in the Demon Annual.
Yeah, so they were like, cool, let's do that. And so I would want to just be like, yo, dude, like do a story about get all the Bloodlines characters in a pot and just have fun with it with Hitman for 12 issues. You know that would be fun. Like him and John would be back together.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I think people want to see him tackle that character again anyway, and to have him do it in such a like free, unrestricted kind of way. I mean, like just seeing him do a Hitman Black Label book would be kind of awesome to see.
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, that would be all. I would be happy with any of that stuff.
Right, but I would. But Bloodlines is one of those things.
I see. Yeah,
I remember. I don't remember what it was, but I remember there was like a moment in a later book. I think it was when Hitman teamed up with the Justice League, and the Flash goes, "Oh God, it's one of those awful New Bloods again." And I was like, "Hey, I love disdain for 90s characters." Like,
no, that's because I'm gonna get super nerdy with you about this. That is because Wally, his guy was Argus, who was Nikki Kovac, and Nikki Kovac and Linda had weird little like, "Hey, how you doing?" looks, and she was kind of like not interested in it, whatever. But he clearly, like Nikki Kovac, clearly flirted with Linda, and Linda was like, "Whatever, loser." But he clearly flirted with Linda, and I think Linda, who was a reporter, was also investigating cases involving, because Nikki had this like convoluted thing where it was like, it's not really that convoluted, I guess, where it was like he was an FBI agent undercover with the mob family, but also a superhero. Like it was like this like hat on a hat on a hat.
Yes.
I still love the character. I still love that story. But for Wally to not like a Bloodlines character, it's like, yo, dude, I know what that's all about. Like, I know what you're really
You know where that's coming from. There's a baggage there. It's like, no, one of your New Bloods trying to hook up with my girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, you New Bloods.
You New Bloods.
Like, that's really what that's all about.
See, I always interpreted it super dirty on it. Because I always thought, I love that, but I always thought it was like Wally just being like, man, I just got here and you're trying to replace me with these new freaking characters. Get out of here. Like, people are just starting to warm up to me, and now we're going to get the new people. Like, we haven't even given Nightwing more than 10 issues. Like, let's go.
No, well, that was because, dude, that was all a byproduct of Image. Because if you really look at them, it's like, it's right after Image. It's like a year and a half after Image is really kicking off.
Yeah.
And because, Image is 92 and Bloodlines 93. We're actually experiencing the 30th anniversary of Bloodlines right now, this summer.
No
one's going to do anything.
I'm shocked.
Dude, I have like a list of omnibuses. I have a list of books I want DC to collect.
Yeah, Armageddon 2001, Bloodlines.
Yes, but Bloodlines is on that list because Bloodlines has never been collected.
I know. No, when we did it on back issues, I'm like, guys, look at how much this is. Like, you could,
dude,
you know how much you could make. Yeah, it would be a fat omnibus. It would be full of crazy ass. If you're gonna collect War of the Gods, which is borderline unreadable, you could definitely.
There are good parts. There are good parts.
It's like, let me tell you something. War of the Gods is one of those books where I have tried. It's for me. It was unpenetrable. But I called my wife and I was like, "You're doing the War of the Gods episode of Back Issues, Tiffany."
Oh, you told me before, yeah.
And she read that omnibus cover to cover. And she's like, "Why did you do this to me?" But she also loves mythology, and so she was like, she found some real, like, she found a good spin to go on it. Also, she really loved the whole George Perez got screwed angle on that whole story. So she was like,
dude,
"I like
that thing is super weird because there's this stuff with George Perez, then there's this stuff with there's two. So one thing with War of the Gods, I'm very thankful for the War of the Gods existing because of Pariah stuff.
Pariah.
Like,
that's why she hates Pariah so much, because of War of the Gods. She's like, what a crybaby. Yeah.
Yeah, well, he was a crybaby in Crisis too, but I still feel like, that dude went through a traumatic event. Like,
yeah, but it's some point or another.
Listen,
if you're gonna elect to wear a cape, yeah,
well, he watched millions of worlds get destroyed, and that's why. But the crybaby thing is funny because I had been in meetings with people, and I'm not gonna say who they are, but like I think I told you before. Every time we would talk about it, I was like, "Where's Pariah at?"
Where's Pariah?
And there was somebody really high up the food chain that was just like, "I hate Pariah. He cries too much," and so that's why in Dark Crisis. I only had him cry one tear one time, and it was when the multiverse came back, and he cries one black tear. We were at MegaCon last year. I was at a panel at MegaCon last year, and we were talking about Dark Crisis, and I was like, I mentioned this whole thing, and a person in the audience was like, because I was like, I'll have Pariah cry once. I will have Pariah cry one time in this whole thing, and it's when he basically gets his way. And one person in the audience was like, one tear, and I was like, you gotta deal. Like, I'll make that happen. So if you read Dark Crisis, that's why I was like gonna have a cry, and she was right, one tear. So the other thing about War of the Gods is really fascinating is when you think about the impact it actually had also on Infinity Gauntlet.
Oh, I know.
Because the stuff, there's all the turmoil over there, and it was like, just all the stuff that was going on over there. And then he leaves Infinity Gauntlet to go do War of the Gods, basically. It was unhappy with some stuff too, but that.
Yeah.
Ron Lim comes in, and it's funny about how, when you think about Infinity Gauntlet, the stuff at the beginning, I think the first issue was like super beautiful, and obviously we saw some of this stuff put into the movies, right?
Absolutely.
But a lot of the scenes that people like hardcore remember are the Ron Lim scenes, like Captain America standing up to Thanos. That's a Ron Lim scene, So it's just sort of fascinating how these things in comics, like I wish we had way more like oral histories about comics. Like, I would love to like sit people in a room and just be like, tell me what really happened. Like, I don't know.
Exactly. It's so
I did that with
rare.
Valentino. Well, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say that's why I love the forwards in old trades and old collections.
Oh, dude,
because they're so fresh, and because they're doing it like they're like, oh, you tapped me to write the forward. Well, then I'm gonna really lay into it, and I'm like, and they're all lost to time. Like nobody reprints the forwards of a trade from 1987.
No, they do a new one. No, they'll do none at all.
They'll do a new one.
Yeah, forwards
or nothing.
Forwards is like a lost art for comics.
Yeah.
Let's bring it back. I'm gonna ask. Let's see if we can bring it back because I did it in my image books and stuff. Like, I feel like if you're doing a deluxe hardcover, like a nice hardcover, you should put a forward in there.
Well, give me a forward and an afterward. Like Dark Crisis is a great opportunity for that to happen. You can get Marv Wolfman.
I should have got
forward.
Yeah. I think that ship has sailed because that trade. I think they were asking me a couple questions last week about it. Yeah, it went to print. I think it went to print last week.
Oh, cool. All right.
But yeah, that trip is sailed. I think if I got an absolute, then I would be like, okay, guys, like let me do something. But that's such a changes like that. Sometimes when it comes to DC, there's so many layers of people you have to talk to.
Yeah.
With that stuff, and again, I have to remind myself sometimes, like I am just a freelance chilling in my office,
right?
Like I'm exclusive, like I'm still an exclusive creator, and obviously I'm very opinionated. And we talk about this, like I'm usually the one raising my hand, being like, "What about this? What about this? What about this?" It's a little different now, just in terms of like, I used to go down to the office like almost once a month, like every 2 months at least. but I haven't done that in a long time. But now it's like the editors, I talk to the editors all the time. So I'm always, I'm telling you, I'm always pitching John. Like, I pitch John not only for my books, for other people's books. I'm like, you should do this, you should do this. Oh, they're doing that, they should do this. Like, I'm always throwing stuff in the pot.
Sure.
But when it comes to things like that, like collections and things like that, that's like a little, because story stuff is fine. I think when it comes to like, here's my list of books you guys should collect, I know there are some people that are like, okay, dude.
Like, right, they're like, you're not even talking to the right person. Like, I don't even know who to ask about that. Like,
well, I have to be careful because, you know, I don't want to always like, overstep my bounds. But also, I don't like going over people's heads. Like, I try not to. So that's the other thing is like, you make sure you talk, like you said, it's like, if I'm going to pitch a bunch of stuff, I try to talk to the right person. And I'm like, what about this? What about this? You know?
Exactly.
Like, we're doing, I think this was announced in Comics Pro, we're doing bookmarks as promotional stuff. And I think, we talk about this, like, I really love bookmarks. And I think comic shops, it's a really good sales tool for the shops.
Yeah.
And so I pushed for that forever. And so they're going to be doing bookmarks.
I love it.
So it was just like, I had to push for a while on that.
Nice.
But yeah, so my other thing to ask you about conventions.
Yes.
Like, is there a book, like one book that you kind of always keep an eye out at conventions? Like, if you were buying anything, Unslabbed, is there anything that you're like, oh, my stuff is like really high. The things that I kind of look for, that I look for deals, are either really weird, like 90s books, not even 90s book, but weird, but like the obvious 90s stuff that I sold, that kind of went back. But every once in a while, I'm looking for that, like that one deal. Yeah, like I'm looking for that. Like, there's certain things you're never going to get. Like, you're never going to get like Action Comics or Batman, like number 1. You're never going to get
like 27. No.
That stuff. But, you're going to find, there are times, because there's the grading thing too, right? Like, every once in a while you look at a graded book and it's like, oh, 1. Right. And you're like, yeah, but then I still have it.
I mean, if there are great, like, I would love to get, and it's not like I'm going to find it in a long box, like, but I would love to have a copy of, like, Amazing 1.
Can I? Yeah. I was going to guess. Yeah, for you, it was Amazing Fantasy 15. Yeah,
wouldn't it be cool to have a copy of, like, a torn ass, like, got crayon all over it, Amazing Fantasy 15, just to have it? I think that'd be kind of amazing, but it's not like, it's so rare for me to think about, like, a single issue, but, like, because I get so many, like, because for me, it is about, as you pointed out, like, it is about getting the signature. And it's not, like, about getting, like, I don't, they're not like Pokemon to me. I don't go, like, oh, I got him. It's more like, I got to meet so-and-so. Like, I had a really rare instance. I'm at New York Comic Con. This is 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah, it has to be pre-pandemic, so 3 years ago. And I'm on the floor. No, I'm on the basement where they keep the artists, of course, in the zoo, and
where we belong,
where you belong, way down there. And we're in the comic sketch art line. Tiffany has a giant copy of Witches that she wants signed by Jock. And so we're in the line, and I'm just hanging out with her, and I see next to me, this dude has all of his books that he's going to get signed. And one of them is, he opens it up, and like, he's got all these inscriptions on the inside. And one of them was Sam Keith. And I'm like, oh my God, you met Sam Keith? That's so cool. I would love to have met Sam Keith. He's like, I got this 10 minutes ago. He's upstairs. And I'm like, what do you mean he's upstairs? I looked at the roster. There's no one on that list that says Sam Keith. He goes, no, he's with something else. Like, he's on the main floor in the middle of something. And I'm like, are you shitting me? Because I love the Max. And and I'm like, I could take one of my 7 copies of the Max from home, but I'm here on the floor. But, so Tiffany's like, oh my God, we don't have your copy. I go, we'll be fine. So we go up to the floor. We locate Sam Keith, and my comic shop has a booth that sells back issues next to him.
Nice.
And I'm like, I need a copy of the Max. He's like, here you go, because there's 17 of them. And so I get to, but I'm like, it's the dude, because I'm like, there's so many influential and like movers and shakers that like I either took for granted when I was a kid because I was a kid and I didn't know the name. My parents didn't even foster that collective understanding of like who made what and how it came to be. I had to like learn that later, or like reread old Wizards and be like, oh, that's what they're talking about. Like that's when like Mark Gruenwald was a big deal. Damn, I wish I'd known that back in the day. Like I just took it for granted. And so to see them today, I'm like, I'm trying to like kind of retroactively, recognize their impact and importance and give them some, because I mean, especially like as as they get older and as the industry becomes more and more different, as it changes, you know, the line for Carl Potts is getting shorter, you know, every year, and it's like, oh, but you go over to him, and you go, hey man, like, I love this book, and it, you know, it shows them like you're not forgotten and you are important and valued, and you know, and it contributed to what I get to do, and I you know, I so much of my life is freedom as a result of like this industry. Like I have all this crap that I would kill to have as a child, and I do it for a living, and I'm like, and I owe it to you, like to you and to your cadre. So like that's why I do the signature thing. I'm just like, oh man, I gotta meet so and so. Like that's so cool, you know. So it's not necessarily a single issue.
No, I get you, and I feel like you're right. I mean, that's part of why the Garth Ennis thing happened, because I was like, you know, I feel like we only have so many opportunities, and it's like I've met creators from afar. It's also weird too, because it's like there are certain creators that I've met at different stages of my life.
Yes.
And you know what I mean? So it's like I was kind of joking before, there's a lot of creators who I talk to now, and I have these kind of like creator to creator conversations, or we're planning things together, that I like worshipped as a kid, you know, in some cases a child. And it's weird because I don't bring that up to them. You know, I'm not like, oh, we actually met. Like there's times where I'm like, I'll meet a creator and I'm like, oh, we actually met when I was like 12 years old. And you know what I mean? Like
Comic-Con. Yeah, exactly.
And I walked over and look, I have your signature on this book. Remember? Like, you know, I don't do that as much.
No, I don't blame you. It's
well, it's also there's a bit of like playing it cool, because I don't want to. It's a work situation a lot of times.
You don't want to freak them out.
So you want to freak them out, but it is hard, because there are times where it's like you wish you could say, "Hey, like I love your work," and you know. And I think some of them know. So like Mark Waid knows. Like Mark Waid knows I met him when I was much younger. He knows we've run into each other enough times that he is aware that I was a big fan of his work. And then of course you read my flash run, and you're like, oh, clearly, you know.
Oh, I see the influence.
Yeah, it's every once in a while when we text each other, I definitely have a click in my head. Like, oh man, it's so weird. Like 12-year-old me would be like, are you texting with Mark Waid right now? Like,
right?
Also, we'd be like, what is texting? But you know, I mean, like,
sure.
It's a whole thing, but it just trips me out. There was I was going to tell you about with that, but yeah, I try to balance that out of like, you know, it is hard because like I'll give you an example. This is like a sad version of this. San Diego Comic-Con, every year I would go when I was little. And then when I was in my, like, you know, like I said before, I would go all the time in my earlier 20s. And I would go wait in line for, you know, like I remember waiting in line for Michael Turner and Mark Silvestri's autograph one time. Like, you know, you get to meet these people and you get to meet them and get their autographs and stuff. And then, you know, in some cases, you know, those creators may not be there the next year for a variety of reasons.
Sure.
But one of them that I look back at it, and I'm like annoyed at myself and annoyed at comics in some way. This man, Gil Kane, never had a line.
Oh.
And I remember one time walking through, it was like they had Artist Alley, and they had a different kind of, at one point, they would have like this different version of Artist Alley. It was like a little more spaced out, a little bit more for lines. And not to say he never had a line, but like he obviously would have people come to him. But when you think about who he was, you're like, that dude's line should have been around the block. And
absolutely.
I remember there were times where we would walk by his table and we would wave and smile. And I look back at that and I'm like, dude, I wish, like that was, I wish I had brought like a stack. And again, that's not just about me being selfish. Like, I'm going to have this guy sign my books, but it's about what I'm saying. It's about getting to show appreciation to this person.
Exactly.
And I wish when I look back at that, and I can clearly see the memory of me walking and he's over here, and me and my buddies walking and waving, and not actually going to him and being like, dude, you were awesome, thank you. Like, we didn't do that. And I kind of regret that. And I think that's something about when I think about creators now, I get not convention anxiety, but as you know, there's so much going on all the time. And it can be a marathon. And
absolutely.
For either you're a guest, like, or a person that's a creator, or anybody, like, it is a marathon for everyone that is there, right? Like, we're all going through this intense experience.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like
even if you're a fan, it's
exactly.
Just figuring out when lunch is going to be. No, and for you, it's like you're
just getting in the building.
Just getting in the building. I mean, well, you and I, like, you and me walked through the floor, and I'm like, you had done a signing. You were like, I have to go to this other thing. We can talk in between that
And
space.
walking.
It's like
Yeah,
just
dude.
walking, and then you were like, this is an area you can't go, so now I have to go this way. And it's like there is so much
Yeah.
work that goes like just from
Stuff
getting
all the
up,
time.
and then of course in between all that you're like, I'm probably it's work. Your editors, you know, everyone's there, so you're gonna
Oh, yeah.
hash out story or planning or, you know,
Yeah.
any other number of things for the business. So it's just, and then there's fan interaction, and it's just like, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
madhouse.
I think that, and it's hard sometimes to take those moments to be like, either I'm going to go shop for things just to be a
Right.
fan for a little bit, you know. I
Yeah.
used to do a thing in San Diego where I would get there really early in the morning before the floor would open, and that's when I would
Yes.
walk around a little bit and like
Yeah.
take in the convention, you know.
Mhm.
One time at WonderCon, they had this giant fake money bin from DuckTales, and these giant pillow coins, and you could jump into it.
That's
And
awesome.
so I have a picture somewhere of this, but I was walking the floor at like 7:30 in the morning or something, and I was just like, dude, can I go jump in that? And they were like, yes, but be quick about it. And I was like, ah! Like,
Yeah.
there's a picture of me like with these giant pillow coins. But you know, it's just like to actually enjoy the convention sometimes can be hard.
Yes.
But yeah, like to go to creators and see them. And then one time, Tom King and I went to this party at San Diego, and it's like this notorious party that's been going on forever, and it's like it's one of the harder ones to get into. There's like literally like a very short list of creators that go, and I had never got to go before, and I knew a lot of people wanted to go but never got to go. And so one time, Data Dio invited Tom and I to go. We were going to be his guests, and
Nice.
it was a whole process to get in. It was not easy. It was not just like your name's on the list. It was like it was a thing, and we got in there. And the moment Tom and I walked in, we were like, "Oh, now we know why this is so hard to get into." It was like every single comic legend, like every name you could imagine, is just hanging out together as friends.
Yeah.
And it was awesome because all the tables were made of paper and there were crowns everywhere.
Oh my god.
So you got like Sienkiewicz's drawing on this thing that will then be destroyed at the end of the night.
Yes.
You know, you got Walt Simonson over here, and Dan DiDio is literally like me and Tom being like, and this is the plan for the next 2 years, like writing it down on the thing.
Knowing it's gonna go.
Like, here's the idea.
Awesome.
He's like, well, this is where this is gonna land. This is gonna land. You could tell Dan was still thinking about stuff that was pitched during the convention and everything.
Sure.
But Tom and I are just sitting there. The reason why I brought up Sienkiewicz is because Tom and I had never met Sienkiewicz before. And we're sitting. Remember when I looked at everyone? Like if you, it was like, you know, Sergio Aragonés came walking in at one point. We're just like, oh my god, dude. Just like that dude is here. This dude is here. You know, at one point we're like watching a bunch of these like legends just like in a corner talking and laughing, and you're like, I don't know, are they talking about comic books? What are they talking about?
Right. What are they talking about over there? Yeah.
And so we had all these different people coming and sitting with us and stuff, and we didn't know who they were. And at one point, this dude is sitting next to me and like Tom is sitting across from me, and we're just like in awe. It's like we're just two, and this is like we're like 2 years into Rebirth. So like he writes Batman, I write Flash. Like we're doing a lot of work, and we're just like two nerds just in this like room full of legends. And this guy sits next to us, and he starts just talking to us about whatever. And he's just drawing on the table and just joking with us. And at one point, he starts talking about having a toaster collection, and that's when we both were like, toaster collection. Like I feel like I know who this guy is. And that's when Tom was like, "Who are you?" Just straight up, was like, "Who are you?" I learned something about Tom and the CIA. I always joke with him about the CIA stuff. I'm like, you weren't a very good CIA agent, were you?
Right.
But he's the most like, because he just asks people questions. Like, there's no tact or like slyness of like, oh, really? What book was that? Like, to kind of, he's like, who are you? And Sienkiewicz, he's like, oh, you know, Bill Sienkiewicz. We're both like,
yeah.
And he's drawing on the table and crown in front of us, and you can just clearly see it's Sienkiewicz drawing. You're like, oh yeah. But that we were both so nervous. Like, should we be taking pictures? Should we be like posing with people?
Get pictures with them. Yeah, but you also want to play it cool. You don't want to be like the guy, the only one who took pictures. You know, but at the same time,
I will say,
go ahead.
But looking back at it, I wish we took pictures.
Yeah,
like we did, and I regret it. I'm like, dude, we should have just been like.
Yes.
Like we should have just said screw it and been like, yo, I wrote the Flash, he writes Batman, let's take some pictures.
Yeah, man. No, I there is something to be said for like seizing that moment and like appreciating it and just diving in. Cause like I have a couple of pictures like that, and I'm very like glad I have them. I have this great picture of me and Kevin Conroy on the fridge at the office, and I'm like, and I just it was the first time I looked at it, like since he passed, and I was like, that's really cool. Like,
It's
I'm
just
glad
good,
that
dude. It's just cool.
yeah.
Well, there's two things we said we were going to talk about in this one.
Yes.
We can talk about Batman and Robin briefly, and then we're going to talk about
yeah.
So yeah, Mega Comedy announced something Batman and Robin with Simone Di Maio. It's funny with Batman and Robin, like, so back when I got the job doing Robin, we knew Batman versus Robin was coming. We knew Lazarus Planet was coming.
Gotcha.
But I knew it had this like ticking clock. We weren't sure if it was going to keep going through it and cross over with it. We weren't really sure what we were going to do with it. And then when I took on Batman, we knew it was only going to be for 7 issues. And there was a part of me that was like, it's crazy that Batman and Robin are in at the same time, but we knew they were ending because I was going to do Dark Crisis. Like, I could only do so much, right? Like,
right.
And taking on Batman at that time, because James had left, was like a sudden. It's always a problem with me. It's like my schedule's great, and then I always add something, and then I'm like, oh no, I messed up. And so I knew my schedule was going to be nuts, and I was like, well, leaving Batman and leaving Robin, but I was like, what book I've always wanted to do is Batman and Robin. So way back, probably around more than a year ago, I feel like it was forever ago. I was talking to somebody, Ben Abernathy, who's the executive editor at DC, and I was like, listen, Robin's going to end, Batman, I'm not going to be only writing this many issues. But I was like, I have so many more stories to tell these characters. Would you be interested in doing a Batman and Robin book at the other side, like on the other side of all this stuff?
Right.
So like I said before, we plan things out pretty far. So I'm like, I'm like, can we do this? And he's like, well, it's a matter of timing, and Chips has plans, and we have to wait, obviously, for certain things to fall into motion. And I was like, well, so we started planning it out, and then the timing just worked out. Like, it became this thing where one day I was like, okay, we're doing it, and it was just like, great, now I can do all the stories I wanted to tell. It was funny. I went to Simone Di Maio, and he was our first pick for the artist, and then I was like, what do you want to draw? Like, what is the thing you want to draw in this book the most? And he was like, I really want to draw Arkham Asylum. And I was like, Arkham Asylum's gone. He blew it up. So we got to pick something else. But it'll be really fun. It's like, part of my pitch of it is that, I've seen, like, Batman and Robin, they know how to be Batman and Robin. Right. Now it's about, do they know how to be father and son again? And it's like, before everything, when they were living with each other, there was still Alfred there. Like, Alfred was sort of the buffer, the mediator. Like, he was, he was a third parent. You know, it's like he's the third parent, and so I wanted to show what the relationship is like now. They don't have that buffer, and they're trying to relearn how to be father and son again. And it's still a good relationship, but it's hard for them to suddenly be thrown in a situation where that person is clearly missing. Right. And then to Damian see Alfred's influence on Bruce, and then for Bruce to see Alfred's influence on Damian. Right. And how they sort of try to fill that role for each other now. Mm-hmm. And so it's it's very much the spirit of Alfred involved, and we're able to kind of play with those ideas. And it'll be really fun. Like, the pages Simone is doing are really cool, really just like action packed, and but still it's interesting. Like, on the scenes that are really action packed is very Simone, which is like big, vibrant, explosive pages. And then we have all these quiet pages with them living together, and he kind of tones it down for those pages and really focuses in on the emotions. And so it's been really, really fun. Like, I'm really happy writing it. We have a lot of big plans for it. I've been talking to Chip. I actually talk to Chip again soon for like other bigger Batman plans and stuff. But it's been really good. Like, I'm really, I really enjoy writing it. But so that's Batman and Robin.
That's exciting. Yeah, no, I'm hyped. Yes. I know people love Batman and Robin, so I'm excited for that. And I know, you get both those characters, and you've written for both of them. You've actually written both their solo series.
I have, yeah. So that's what this is. Is like the ideas that I had. I mean, there's going to be a lot more of Robin. There'll be a lot more Robin influence. Like the stuff that was left over from the Robin series will come over, and there's other pieces that are coming in. We'll introduce new characters and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's like a father and son team up book, and then just having a good time. Like, I don't want them to ever fight each other. They definitely have disagreements, because like there's a subplot where basically Bruce, this is a spoiler, where Bruce is like, you're going back to school. And Damian is like, great, undercover work. And he's like, no. He's like, you told me this. Bruce basically says, you told me that when you were on the island, you made friendships, and that helped you. And you feel like you grew as a person because of some of those relationships. I think that should continue. And Damien is like, what is anyone going to teach me at this school? And he's like, it's not about that. It's also about keeping up appearances. Like there's other layers here to why he thinks he should go back to school. And so there's like a subplot of Damien going back to school and some of the fun of that. So there are a lot of pieces that are going to come over. And, you know, obviously I read Green Arrow, so it'd be weird not to have some of the Green Arrow stuff come over too.
Oh, sure.
But, you know, there's a lot of fun stuff. It's an interesting time with all that, like between Superman, Superman, Green Arrow, and Batman and Robin, and then also Night Terrors this summer, and then other secret stuff, and then I go to sleep sometimes.
Oh yeah, that's nice. Like, every once in a while, I'm sure that it's coming up next couple of years.
Oh yeah, I hibernate for like 3 months of the year, and that's it. I'm just awake 24/7. But this actually goes into the next thing we're going to talk about. This is why I'm so far behind on video games, because I buy them. I buy stacks of video games. I have stacks of video games. I have unopened giant deluxes of video games. And I don't ever play them. Like I got them nice. I got this nice big deluxe one, never opened it. Spider-Man, I have both versions of the new Spider-Man.
Oh, nice.
I haven't played them yet. I have tons of stuff. And like we were talking about last time, I asked you the question, what was your favorite video game of all time? It was Spider-Man. Yeah. And I told you I haven't been able to finish it, but every time I play it, I thought it was awesome. For me, I feel like it's Link to the Past.
Link to the Past, yep.
Yeah. So what else you got? I feel like last time you were like ready to You're like,
oh yeah, well no, I mean because I grew up.
What's your favorite arcade game?
Oh,
do you have a favorite arcade game?
They're behind me. Turtles was a big one for me. Just because I loved the idea of like, I was a big Turtles kid back.
Me too.
X-Men was great. All the exact same game, but with different sprites. So it's like X-Men, Turtles, Simpsons. That Spider-Man one was really great, but I played it recently and it kind of sucks. So
where did you play that Spider-Man on? What did you play it on?
I played it on an arcade cabinet.
Oh, okay. Was it one of the new ones, the Arcade One Plus, or was it like a?
No, I played it in our arcade. We have an arcade around.
Oh, arcade! Oh my god!
Yeah, wow. We have a couple of these great, we have a couple of things, Yestercades, and there's another one like it, where you just go and you just play, and then they put a wristband on you, and then they just charge you.
Yeah. We went to an arcade with the kids, and we did that, and we did the whole But all they were interested in the arcade stuff. They were interested in all this is a VR thing,
skee-ball
thing on your head.
Oh.
No, I love skee-ball. I can do skee-ball all day.
Okay,
I've seriously considered buying a skee-ball thing at some point. They're actually surprisingly expensive. You're like,
I'll bet.
I could make this. If I
right?
Really
yeah, it's literally just gravity. It's legitimately expensive when you consider some of the stuff we have now. Because the ones that I have that X-Men one, I have the Ninja Turtles one. I did not get the Simpsons one. I thought about it. I decided not to. It's cheap. I know. I saw. I got NBA Jam. And I got NBA Jam was I think we may have talked. We talked about this one, yeah.
Yeah, the NBA Jam thing of this was my during the summer, my pattern was you go to the comic store, you get some comic books. You go to Pizza Hut, you get a personal pan pizza, with an X-Men Joe Mad cover. Comes the free comic book that was tied into the cartoon, and then you play NBA Jam, and you never win.
No.
You never win.
Well, and that's what's so cool. Lately, if you play at the arcade now, you can finally effing beat NBA Jam, or you get the arcade one cabinet.
Yeah, I haven't installed it.
I will tell you, there's one of my most vivid arcade memories of a revelation for me, and it plays into the whole it's just the same fighting game but with different sprites. Is I remember one time I was in some random arcade, and suddenly before me was the Aliens versus Predator arcade machine, and I was like, holy Christ, they made an Aliens versus Predator arcade, and I'm playing it, and and it's, have you ever experienced this? And I imagine you have, because nerds like us, I had one comic book store when I was a kid growing up, and I could walk to it after school, and it was pretty crappy. It was run by a guy who hated comic books, so it was very, it had a very different vibe. But I remember going to a comic book store one time, was visiting my grandmother in Brooklyn, and for whatever reason my parents were like, let's go to this, let's throw the kid a bone. So I go to this comic book store in the middle of the city, and it's it's for triple the size. It has a giant inflatable Spider-Man. It looks I was I had access to books that I could only dream of, and they're like, you have 5 minutes. But but I'm playing AVP in this arcade, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm literally doing this right now. Like I'm picking between, like, I could be this predator or that predator or Dutch, which I'm not going to do because why would I waste my time being a human when I could be a predator? And I'm killing xenomorphs, and like there's power-ups, and the power-ups are literally like from the movie, and I'm just like, who made this? Like, who thought this was a good idea? And it plays to a concept that I've talked about, and I think I would love to know your opinion on this one. Because,
let's go.
and I know it's kind of changing gears, but I promise I'll get back to video games. But like the idea of, I was in there was like a window of time, and it was when I was like young, but like not, I was sentient. I'm like 8, where it's like the second you started liking something, they made something for it. And especially in the realm of like comic books and movies and video games, because when I was coming up, it's like I found out about the Tick through like Wizard or just getting a copy of it black and white. Suddenly there's a Tick cartoon show. Boom. I find out a big guy in Rusty. There's a cartoon show. I like Ninja Turtles. There's a live action movie. Like everything. I'm getting into Wizard. Well, suddenly there's an HBO cartoon show starring Spawn. There's a Wildcats cartoon show on USA. Like it was just like every time I found this like neat Batman. I'm loving Batman. Well, guess what? The greatest animated cartoon, the greatest animated series of all time. It has been pioneered.
Well, X-Men, I think X-Men is one of the biggest ones. Like, X-Men, like, blows up. I mean, X-Men was, like, steadily blowing up, and then you get to X-Men 1, it's like, oh, 7 million copies, and then here's your cartoon. Like, I feel like this is, like, the algorithm. It's, like, how we have now. It's, like, pre-algorithm. It's, like, there's something about the zeitgeist, there's something about the companies. There probably were experts paying attention to things and being like, the kids actually like this.
Yes.
Like, this is, like, really early pre-focus group stuff, where it's, like, a company would be, like, bring a bunch of kids into a room, put a bunch of stuff on the table, and we're going to see what they all play with and look at. And they're like, yo, they like this Tick thing over here. Yeah. Like, I think that's part of that, but it is a weird phenomenon because, dude,
isn't it?
You're 100% right, where it's like that thing. I mean, look at Star Wars. Obviously, Star Wars was huge. Like, Star Wars was huge. But there's a weird – some of it is just really smart planning because it's like on their part. Because it's like this weird thing of, so look at Star Wars. Like, I was really into Star Wars as a kid, but you kind of fall out of it at some point, like in the 80s, late 80s. I was kind of like starting to ease out of it. You're getting in the 90s, and all of a sudden Kenner is like, here's a bunch of new Kenner toys for Star Wars. You start getting into it again, wrapping up. And then they're like, here's the re-releases.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, okay. And then here's, and I think it was actually before the re-releases. Oh, I've been after the re-releases. They're like, here's Shadows of the Empire.
Yep.
And it's like this thing, it's a staggered thing, and then all of a sudden they're like, and then here's the prequels. Yeah. And it's like, it's this weird staggered thing, which I think some of that just comes down to
that was George. Planning. Well, it was like George, the reason why.
George being like, I want to make more toys. Like that's part of it.
But even but even the fact that like you fell off of Star Wars in the late 80s is George's design, because he was like, no, I'm going to plan obsolescence for Star Wars. I'm going to rest it, and it's like, so you, but I'm not going to burn you out on it. That's the thing. It's like, you love Star Wars, I'm going to take it away from you, and then I'm going to give it back to you when you have money. Like that's my favorite like trick in comics though too. Is like we're going to take it away from you, and then I'm going to give it back to you. Like it's this give and take, and I think that's something in comics that's kind of hard, is that balance of breaking and building, taking and giving away. And we talk about this a lot with the characters, where people are like, I want this book, I want this book, I want this book, and you're like, we had to rest it. Because the problem is that book was just here and it wasn't selling. If we launch it too quick, it's going to have the exact same numbers it was before, and that's not going to help anybody out. We got to rest. And also, you want to make sure that the reason you're making that book is not just because there's a hole on the stand. Right. There has to be like, you want to create this passionate about it that likes it. Exactly. So there's this comic I really loved when I was a kid. Loved it. Right. And you fast forward, 20 something years, 25 something years later. I'm trying to avoid statements of facts so I don't give away what it was. And I heard a creator was going to do a version of it. And I was very excited. I was like, hell yeah, dude, this is going to be awesome. I'm so pumped. And I ran into him at an event, and I was like, dude, what's the plan? I'm so pumped up. I'm so excited. You're doing a new version of this thing. What's going on with it? They couldn't answer a single question I had. And not even on a like not a nerd level, but just as a pro, like writer-to-writer conversation. You could tell
they had no love, passion, or familiarity with the title at all, like nothing.
Yeah.
And I was like, what about this? What about this? What about this? And it was like, to them, it was like they were being handed something. They didn't love it. They had no care for it, and they were going to do it. And that thing bombed. I mean, and part of the problem is that I think if you're not appealing to any part of the demographic at that point.
Exactly.
Like, you're not appealing to, I don't know, it's really weird. Like, you have to find something about it. Even if you're like relaunching it with a new thing, you know, you look at Ultimate, like, look at Ultimate Spider-Man, and it wasn't Ultimate Spider-Man, to be clear, but you look at Ultimate Spider-Man, and it's like, he took the things that worked, and then he expanded it, he grew on it. And so I think it's one of the things that worked about it was accessible to the two audiences, where it felt like it was honoring the original. So if you were a Spider-Man fan, you were like, cool. Mm-hmm. Like, they're not trashing the things that I love. They're not mocking it or making fun of it, and they're not being like, I have to reinvent it. But then it also was very accessible for a new audience. And I think that's something, when I look at this stuff, but really to me, and this is always something DC stuff, even with DC stuff, anytime a creator tries to pitch me anything, I always ask them, like, what do you actually like? You know, because I think that's part of it, is like, you actually like that character. Because you don't like that character, not necessarily you have to like them, because you might find something about that mythology that you recognize you like, and that's where you're heading into that character. You might find a way to love that character eventually, but to bring it all the way back, that's why things should rest sometimes. But yeah, that phenomenon of like, you get into something and then suddenly it blows up. What's really weird about that, I'm going to give you a really silly example. 20 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, like 18 years ago, I was had a job on the weekend. I would come home really late on Sunday. And the person I was with at the time, they were a server, so they just weren't around on Sunday night. So I'll come home, like, decompress, and then I'm like, I'm going to watch something. What am I going to watch? So I started watching this show on TV, and I'd never heard of it before, never seen anything online. None of my friends watched it. Nobody I knew watched it. And I was just like, cool, I'm going to watch this show. Yeah. It's like 2 or 3 episodes in, right? So I started watching it, and I'm like, oh, I like this show. You know, it's kind of like trashy soap opera, you know, on a Sunday night, kind of fun. I started watching it. I'm not sure if I watched it for a full year. I might have watched it for a few months. And we had like a family gathering. I go to the family gathering, and I'm like, has anybody heard of this show? It's called Grey's Anatomy. And everybody's like, you mean one of the most popular shows on television? This is the first season. So it like blew up real fast, you know? Yeah. And then like everybody watches that show. And I was like, I thought I discovered like a secret thing. I'm like, it's on like 10 o'clock on a Sunday. Yeah, who's got time to watch this? Nobody watches this show. Well, it's funny how I think you think you're getting into something on the ground floor, but then you kind of realize, oh, this thing might have actually been popular before, you know? Absolutely. Or it has gone through the rounds, you know, like Ninja Turtles. Like, Ninja Turtles was fairly popular even before. Like, it was popular in every realm it was in, basically, right? So it was popular in the comics. People were like, this thing is cool. It was popular as a cartoon. All of us were like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Yep. And then it was popular, you know, with the toys and everything. And I remember I was actually thinking about this because of the Mario movie, which I haven't seen. And actually, I'm curious if you saw it. Yes, I did see it. We'll talk about that later. Yeah. Your face makes me think we should talk about it later. I haven't seen it yet, but I was trying. My daughter's never been to the movies before. She's never been to a theater. And so I was like, we should take her to see that. Like, she's excited. She likes Mario. She would love it. For kids. Let's go. Yeah. This is how I found out that movie was going to be a beast in the theater, because trying to look up tickets online, I was like, oh my God. I was like, everything is sold out. And I've never seen this before. It was like every screening, every seat. I was like, I've never seen this for a Marvel movie. I've never seen this for any big movie. Have I seen this? Like every screening it was weird. It was like, I didn't look at like 9 o'clock screenings because I'm too old for that. But also my daughter's too old for that. She's not old enough. Yeah. Yeah, but looking at screenings at like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, I was like, oh my God. And then this is why I'm bringing back Ninja Turtles. Yes. I remember the day Ninja Turtles came out. Like, I remember the day it came out, and we were going to see it that weekend. And one of the kids at our school suddenly got pulled out of class. And we were like, what's wrong with this kid? Is there an emergency? Whatever. And they were like, no, his parents are taking him to see Ninja Turtles. They pulled him out of class in the middle of elementary school. They pulled this kid out of class to go see Ninja Turtles. And I remember all of us were so jealous. We were like, yeah, you can do that? You can do that? Right? That's a thing? And so, yeah, Ninja Turtles, like, people don't expect. And also that movie's funny. Like, you realize, I watched Secret Galaxy talked about this a little bit about the changes, the editing. That's a movie I would love to see, like the other edit that was considered darker or whatever. The longer edit, I would love to see that.
Did you see who one of the editors is? It's Sally Menke from freaking Quentin Tarantino. Like, she's the editor on all of Tarantino's movies, and she cut that movie, and I'm like, that's why this movie is endlessly watchable. Like,
yeah, I really want to. Well, she edited the new one. She edited the edit
one
of see.
Yeah, she's one of two editors on the first TMNT from '90, and I'm like, I remember seeing it because I watch that movie like once every 5 years or so, and I was watching it a couple of years ago, or maybe like a year ago, and I see her name, and it's the first time I noticed. I'm like, holy crap! No wonder this movie is so watchable.
Dude, it's like so good. It's so
good. Yeah,
it's just a clean, like it all works. It all adds up.
The master class.
I had a fun time. Yeah. That movie it's fascinating, but again, it's like and Ninja Turtles is such a fascinating thing to me. It's like two dudes got drunk one night, we're joking around. They just love Frank Miller's Daredevil.
Of funny things, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And they just love Frank Miller's Daredevil. And they're like, what if instead of the hand it was the foot? Like, I mean, I just love everything about Ninja Turtles. It's such a perfect little. It's also so believable. Like, that is just the kind of conversation you could absolutely have over pizzas and beer, where you're just like, what if it was the foot? The foot? Who fights the foot? And it's like, oh my god. Then, instead of stick, it's Splinter. I mean, everything in that movie, it just
endlessly parallels.
Works.
It
all works really well. But bring it on back with video games.
Let me really quick, that Mario movie.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was talking to my wife about this. I'm like, I think Mario is as popular or more recognizable than Mickey Mouse now. So, like, no wonder this movie is so big. Like, right? Everyone knows who Super Mario is because everyone plays video games.
You know, I think that is hard because there's only one Mario Land. Or there's two technically, but it's that small. They're smaller. They're not like massive, but you know.
I have a friend who went and he was like, it was small.
Disney is such a humongous thing, but I was thinking about this because we had this conversation last time where it was like Mickey Mouse. Remember the time ago, but it's like there wasn't a new Mickey Mouse cartoon for like 20 years.
Yeah,
and now they have the Mickey Mouse, like his friends, and then Wonderful World of Mickey Mouse, and those I think are fairly popular. Then they finally, for the first time ever, there's a Mickey Mouse ride, like a full on Mickey Mouse ride. Yeah, like it's the first time they've ever done like a full-on, like this is a Mickey Mouse ride in Disneyland, in Disney World. And it has all the friends, all the characters. They remodeled downtown Disney to be much more like Mickey Mouse-centric. And it feels like at some point somebody at Disney, it's all speculation on my part, it does feel like somebody at Disney was like, Mickey Mouse is our number one brand, it's the logo, maybe we should do more with him. Because it feels like they weren't doing anything with
Let me tell you,
Disney
copyright's up next year.
Oh, I know. Yeah, but that might be technically. Okay, so you know what that whole thing. Technically, it's just
Steamboat Willie. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just Steamboat Willie. So, you know, I wonder. You never know. Life is weird. You never know what's gonna happen. You know, and it's like, listen, like I don't know. I would be curious if anyone is getting rich off of Winnie the Pooh.
I doubt it.
I know the people making horror movies, but it's not like somebody was like, "Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna manufacture thousands of cheap Winnie the Pooh toys and sell them." Where? Like, I mean, you know what I mean? It's like
the throngs of children that all love Winnie the Pooh. Like, no.
I know my kids love Winnie the Pooh. My daughter loves Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, they like that.
And she knows the difference exactly, and that's the thing about it. Like there was a joke. I'm gonna get it wrong. Somebody basically was like, you know, if they have a red shirt. No, that's what it was like. If they have no shirt, you're good. If your Winnie has a shirt, then you're Pooh, or something like that. It was like this joke because that's the line. You can't have Winnie the Pooh. So Disney owns Winnie the Pooh with the red shirt.
Yeah.
If you do Winnie the Pooh, it has to be the original book, which means he's just a teddy bear. Which means if you put that out there, no kid who is familiar with this thing that Disney. I mean, listen, like every Disney park has a Winnie the Pooh ride.
Yeah.
So it's like if you go to Disneyland, you are probably, you know, like my son, he sleeps with a Tigger at night, like he knows who Tigger is and stuff. Yeah. So it is a thing among kids that is popular, but I would be curious. I might be wrong. Maybe the person, like, I know they're making like horror movies with Winnie the Pooh and stuff. Maybe they're all like filthy rich now. Who knows? I don't know.
I sincerely doubt it. I haven't seen
that. There's stuff. I would be curious if any of that ends up being worth it. It's also weird because there's only so much you can do with it. Right. Like you can only go so far with it. And, Yeah, because even with like Superman at some point, right? Like stuff like that with Superman stuff, it's like you can only do so much with it. But any of those pieces, it's really interesting when things fall into public domain, which you can't, because things have changed over the years and stuff. I don't know. It's a fascinating thing. But yeah, the Mario movie was a beast. I kept telling people leading up, I was like, dude, this is gonna be crazy. Like I could feel it. Like I was like, dude, this movie is gonna be insane. And then each day you could tell that it was surprising. Like people would be like, "Oh, it's gonna make this amount," and then it would make way more than that amount. And the next day, like, well, we think it's gonna make this amount on Sunday, and then it's like way more than that amount. It's just interesting to watch this sort of like progression of it, because it is incredibly popular character.
It is in the YouTube space. It's actually funny to watch the like grifters like heel turn on Mario, because like when it first started, they were like Peach wearing pants, woke, and then the movie started making banks, and then they're like, Mario's crushing Disney, you libtards, we're totally crushing it. And I'm like, you made the same video. Like, you're just...
I don't know. I want to see it.
Oh, you should see it. Oh, no, it's worth seeing.
Yeah, I want to see it. It's like an hour and a half movies are like a blessing.
The lowest commitment you will ever make in the year.
Yeah. I want to go, but also I just want to see, I'm mostly just going so my daughter can like see a movie on the big screen. We originally were going to take her to see Frozen 2.
Oh, should we
like that? We didn't, and I regret it, because it was like a month before the pandemic. Something happened. I had the tickets and everything, and I decided, like, no, we'll go. I don't know what it was. There was some kind of problem. I decided not to go. And the pandemic hit. So we haven't done it since, and we were just like looking for the right movie, and we think this is it. So we're gonna try to go at some point in the next 2 weeks. And it's funny though, because I have the impulse of like, you know, on any big movie, I'm like, I have to see it as early as possible, because some shit's gonna get spoiled for me. My daughter has no concept of this at all. Like nothing is gonna get spoiled for her. She's not gonna be concerned at all. You know. She doesn't really concern herself with spoilers. I mean, she will spoil something for you though. Like,
sure.
If she's seen a movie before you, she 100% will spoil it. Like she'll be like, "Oh, this happens," and I'm like, "Yo, I'm like literally watching it right now with you." Like, you know, spoilers. She has no concept of that. She's excited. She's like, "This thing happens." When she's really into something, you know, she'll watch the movie of it, and then she'll either read the book version of it, or I'll read the book to her at night. And it's funny because like. She had me read this book, so my wife and I will alternate, and so sometimes she'll read at night, sometimes I'll read at night. So it's kind of weird. You're reading. There are times we read books, but I'm reading them in these like weird staggered like chapter.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I missed a whole huge chunk of this. Like,
I have no idea. So I'm like, oh man, that happened. Like you kind of put together through. But it's funny. I was reading one of the books, and I got like, you know, half of the chapter, and I'm like, we just read this, or we just watched this, like,
right?
And I'm like, but for her, it's all the same fun experience of like, you know. She's just into this thing. It goes with what you're saying, though. She got really into My Little Pony, and I was like, man, this is rough, because it's like the friendship is magic. My Little Pony is kind of past, and so I'm like, she's just now getting into it. So everything she's gonna watch is 10 plus years old,
right?
And then all of a sudden they're like, here's a brand new My Little Pony cartoon with brand new characters. Yeah, and I was like, that's so weird. Like the sequencing, but also I think it's because everything is on some kind of either internal schedule or something, right? It's kind of like how Transformers sort of refreshes every 3 or 4 years. They do it on purpose because kids age out.
Right.
So they do it and they slow down, they do it. It's actually something with comics that I'm always curious about. We don't have equivalent of that. Like, we don't have seasons.
No.
You know, we don't have seasons. We don't have aging out. Things don't really, they do sort of, right? You might have a character get really popular for a minute and then fade down. They get really popular for a minute and then fade down. Like things do kind of come in waves. Yeah. But it's interesting. Some things you have to keep them at this, like, they be popular forever. Yep. In comics. Like, there's definitely this, like, expectation of certain things where it's like, if it takes a little dip, it's like the sky is falling. Yeah. So everything has to stay at this level. And it's like, dude, there is literally no other medium on the planet, I might be wrong on this, that has this. Because of video games, right? Like, video games, you have this game that comes out, it's really popular for a minute, and it goes away, and they bring back a sequel however many years later. You might have something like Fortnite, right? Like Fortnite is a base level of popularity, but they're able to replenish it with new seasons. Exactly. Eventually, it's going to get replaced with something. It'll get replaced with something else at some point, right? Because those kids are going to age out. Those kids that were like getting bragging rights because they won Fortnite the night before at school, those kids are going to either, you know, graduate high school, they're going to move on to other things, they're going to discover something else they're into. Yep. It'll fade down, and it'll be replaced by something else.
Yeah. Comics Minecraft is one of those things too. Yeah.
Yeah, Minecraft. Dude, I remember Minecraft was really popular. Now I don't hear about it as much.
But I think people are still playing it. I think people are still playing it.
Oh, for sure.
Minecraft's one of those things where it's like it's a baseline, but it's like a quiet one. It's a very quiet, like, this book will come, like in comics where it's like there's a quiet, like this book will come out and people will buy. Like I think Daredevil's one of those books right now where it's like it's just a quiet, like here's a book that it hits this number and just as long as you hit this number, just come out.
People like it. Yeah,
but it's not, but it's not big enough to blow people's. It's not big enough to get the attention of the upstairs to like go, let's mess with it. Like, we got to do something with Daredevil now that he's that big. Like,
that was my life on Flash, thankfully. Like occasionally it would come in with stuff. It was always external stuff, so it was like, oh, Hero Crisis is coming, so that makes me change plans.
Yeah.
Certain things made me change plans down the line. Like, there were certain things that definitely came in and I had to like drive different directions.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the reason why I was on it for over 100 issues is because it was just like this. The sales were just like this the whole time.
Yeah, that's
so they were like, leave him alone,
right. Let him do it. It's selling.
Yeah. Well, I would have to react to your stuff, So it's like, oh, Wally West is gonna like kill a bunch of people by accident. So I have to react to that,
Yeah.
So it was like, well, I guess I got to change plans. There were definitely things down the line that maybe impacted stuff and moving things around. But that's just the nature of comics too.
Absolutely.
But think about this, like Friends. So Friends was incredibly popular in the 90s, right? So you're talking like, what is it, 94 to 2003, like 93, 2003, like that window. Crazy popular show for 10 whole years. Nightfall is older than that show. And you think about like Batman, and you're like, so the Friends had this, and then it kind of dipped out for a while, and then streaming and Netflix, it was whoop, back up, because of streaming, and it has these like levels, but it disappeared for a while. Batman as a comic, as a brand, has just been chilling up here like the whole time.
That's true.
Think about how hard that is to maintain that. Like you're talking about from 1989, Batman becomes what we have now.
Yes.
Of this like mega property, right? Mega merchandising property. And it just needs to kind of stay there all the time.
Right. Just
and for the most part, it has. Like think about it. It's just
the dips
and that's true
are minuscule.
Yeah, minuscule. I mean, I think all of them go through like little dips. Like X-Men goes through some dips. Superman goes through some dips. Spider-Man has interesting sort of like.
It's a very interesting. That's a book. That's a phenomenon. That book, because it's not. People talk about how Spider-Man is like the Batman of Marvel, and I'm like, no, Batman. Like, comic shops close if Batman dips. Like Spider-Man.
Batman.
Like
you can't. Spider-Man still sells. Spider-Man is fascinating.
Yeah, but it doesn't sell like Batman does. Like remember, I remember that year. I remember that year when Dark Knight 3: The Master Race came out, and there were like 3 or 4 different Batman titles that just locked in the top 5. It was just like it was all Batman, and there were numbers like 300,000, 400,000. Like it was just like it was numbers that were unheard of. So for DC, it was like, oh yeah, this is it. Whereas Marvel doesn't have like that kind of. They can't make like 6 Spider-Man books and go, oh, this will be fine.
So, I wonder if that's. So at DC, there's certain characters you put on a cover and it will sell more, right? Yeah, you put Batman on a cover, it'll sell more. Mm-hmm. We talked about the Batman Who Laughs. Like you put Batman Who Laughs on a cover and double the sales, but it still has Batman, right? Like you can put Batman on a book and it gets a little bump, you can see a huge bump. And I wonder about that because I think Wolverine was like that in the 90s.
Wolverine and Spider-Man. Punisher was like that. Yeah.
Punisher. I'm curious about that with Spider-Man. Spider-Man really does have that impact now. Because there aren't as many Spider-Man books now comparatively. No. Remember, there was like 4.
There were 4 or 5.
But then you had like a ton of minis, a ton of side things. I mean, it's like Superman was 4 plus like, this huge, massive thing. Same thing with a lot of the characters. With Marvel, I mean, there's Amazing, which is double shift though too. So that plays
it's like it's like $2. Yeah.
Yeah, and then every once in a while they'll have like Friendly, or they'll have there's the Dan Slott Spider-Man title right now.
The solo Spider, and that's going to keep going now apparently. So
so it's like they do have these little things. I'm curious if Spider-Man is one of those characters that you put. I don't know. I'm sure he is. That you put him on anything, and all of a sudden the sales go up on that issue. I think
that certainly was the Marvel mainstay. Like put him on the cover of NFL Super Pro #1, and so we can help this book out. But which he is.
I will say this about Spider-Man. The very first time I ever got paid from Marvel for doing a job, it was the first job I'd ever gotten from one of the big 2. Like I got jobs at, I had done stuff for little smaller publishers and everything. But the very first time either Marvel or DC hired me for something. It was Marvel. It was back in 2008. And because it was back then, I was a brand new little baby creator, and they sent me a check in the mail and it had Spider-Man on it.
Yeah.
And I feel like, to me, that's when you know who the main character of that company is.
He's the Mickey Mouse of Marvel.
You know,
he is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the same thing with, you look at DC and it's like everything has wing tech written on it someplace.
Yeah. Well, even
but Spider-Man and Marvel.
Look at the end of Muppet Babies when it was like Marvel Productions was the Muppet Babies. It was just this incredible CG rendered Spider-Man that came down. It was like,
dude, so cool.
He's a logo.
Yeah,
like Spider-Man's the logo of Marvel. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like he is. But we've been before. I really love Spider-Man, and
yeah,
that's actually one of the things when you talk about the same thing for me. Like there are times where, it's tough. We'll bring it all back to the key issue thing of finding conventions. Like I've seen a relatively, I'm not gonna say affordable, but like
you could do it. You could make it happen.
I could maybe make that happen on something like a Showcase 4. Right.
Yes.
Like I've seen those in person where they're like awful quality, but I'm like, I think I could do that.
Yeah.
I could maybe on the right day do that one. Amazing Fantasy 15 is the harder one because you see it, even the worst copies are still kind of up there.
Yeah.
And it's always like, oh man, dude, like, I don't think, I feel it would take me a good day, I guess. Cause I would be like, because the question is, what do you do with that? Like you're saying, it's not going to get signed by anybody.
No.
Right? Like that's the whole other thing. But where would I put this to feel good about it? Because like right here on the shelf right here, that is a legit Flash 123.
No
that's
kidding.
Not that's an actual.
I thought that was like a. Oh, nice. I thought that was like a toy.
No, that's a real
reprint. Okay.
No, that's a full-on comic book back there. It's pretty good condition. Awesome. So that's something that I feel like, okay, I know where I can put that. Right.
Yeah.
And I will have a Marvel area in here. It'll probably be over here. I'll have like a Marvel section of
a little small area, Red Skull.
Yeah, that's probably where this will go.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm like, dude, I think I told you when I sold my collection, that was like probably one of the biggest regrets I had was selling the Amazing Spider-Man collection because I had 20 to I think it was like 700. Like I had
them all. Like
I had this block, and when I sold that. That's the only thing in the collection. Because I kept all my Batman comics and I kept my Flash comics. Not all of them. I kept Batman and I kept Detective. I didn't keep like Shadow and Legends and Gotham Knights. Like those.
You can get Shadow back.
I can get. There's some Legends and a lot of this has been collected, and now I can read all of them because it's
that's true.
Stuff with the apps and everything.
Oh
but
yeah.
Amazing is the one that I was always like, oh dude, like.
Somebody did somebody brought their 1 through 800 Amazing Spider-Man collection to the Joe Kubert School like a few weeks ago. And so and it was just like, here they all are, and they did like a whole like exhibition, and it was just like photos of the book, and it was just like that's kind of awesome. There
is somebody on eBay right now selling Amazing Fantasy 15 plus Amazing Spider-Man #1 all the way to 900, and they're all CGC.
Oh my god,
they're all CGC.
How much does he want for it?
It's like 1.5.
Okay.
It's like, I think that's what he wants. Which actually, I mean, that's obviously you're like, I'm not doing that.
But like, what's the grade for
Amazing
15? Like that's like 80% of the cost.
Yeah. Well, the thing is all CGC too. That's the part that's kind of surprising.
Yeah, the work's done.
That's crazy. Yeah. But see, that's actually the thing about it that makes me not want to get it in a way. Yeah. I would also feel nervous opening it and looking at it. Oh my god, I don't know what to do with this. Take this over from me, please. Like, I had Action Comics in my hand one time.
Really?
So they have so the DC Comics they have an archive of every comic that they've ever published.
Nice.
And it's this massive room. And when I got my exclusive, they gave me a whole tour. It was kind of fun because I'd been to DC office many times.
Yeah.
But there was something about the day I got the exclusive where they were like, "We're going to give you the real tour," and they took me through stuff and. I got to see things I normally wouldn't see, and I got to do the whole. It was a different experience, and they were like, "We're going to take you down to the archive," and we get in there, and it was everything. It was every single comic they'd ever made in this room, and it was all on shelves, and so you could pull these things down. Inside it had the books, and then sometimes they were staple stitched already. It was really fascinating.
Ooh.
this room is everything. If you needed it, it was there. And they have a glass case. They don't, not only do they have a glass case of Action Comics #1, they have the Action Comics like ash can that was like this low print budgeted thing that actually had come out before. They had both of those things. And they were like, you can hold them. You can hold them. They're in bags of boards. There's some bags of boards too, which is a whole other crazy thing. I don't get me wrong, that glass case is clearly like locked and probably has security on it. I mean, just getting to that room was like a whole thing to get to it. I honestly couldn't tell you how to get there. If somebody was like, can you find the archive in the old building at Point in Burbank, I would not be able to tell you how to get there. But I remember holding it in my hand, and it was weird. It was like, just seeing it in person, I'm like, that's really cool. But holding it in my hand, it was like magical and then not magical at the same time. Because in some ways, I'm like, cool, please take this away from me. Like, I'm going to somehow break this. I need you to get this out of my hands, please. I'm very thankful. And then also it makes you feel, it's really weird. It's a really weird experience when you're holding a book like that, because you're like, it makes everything feel small for a moment. Like, it makes you be like, oh man, cool, it's part of history. And then sometimes you're like, dang, history is this little thing here. Like, it's a weird experience. Sometimes when I look at, I'll make like, I have a shelf down in the actual house, and it's going to come up here soon, but I have a shelf that's all the books that I've ever worked on. It's on one thing. It's much bigger now, obviously. And but there are times where I look at that shelf, I'll be sitting there.
You're like, this is me.
I'll go over at it. But then I'm like, oh man, that's it. Like,
I can imagine. Like the whole of my existence can be summed up in this one small shelf.
Yeah, it's a big shelf, to be fair.
It's a big shelf. Yeah.
Well, I'm moving it up here because it actually. So what happened was it was a shelf in the living room, and at one point it was like manageable, and then it became unmanageable when I got the job at DC. So it was
the 100 issue.
We're talking about foreign reprints and everything. You know, like now it's not the full shelf at this point. So I'm moving it up here, and I'm gonna try to actually have it all on one shelf for the first time. Yeah. But it is a moment you look at it and you're like, dude, that's all I've done. What? Right. Like, I did a lot of work. I thought I did so much more than this, but it's a weird thing.
Yeah. Are you going to keep the black and white cardboard cutout of yourself running like the Flash next to it to kind of like commemorate, like, this is me?
Thankfully, they never made a cardboard cutout of that. I would be Oh my god, dude! That thing is so funny. I think I told you about this before. It was WonderCon, and I remember they took us to this room on the show floor, like one of the panel rooms, but they set it aside to be like, we're gonna take pictures of all the creators. It's the thing we're doing all the conventions. We're giving everybody like their official DC photo. And I was like, I'm gonna do this thing where I'm like running and punching, and they were like, cool. And then it's so funny because like there's this joke in 30 Rock where they tell Liz Lemon she's gonna go do a photo shoot for the cover, and they're like, don't do anything funny. If they hand you something, do not take it. And they show I'm forgetting her name right now, but the other woman in 30 Rock,
Jane Krakowski.
But so she goes up and they're showing her doing this like cool pose, and they're like throwing rubber chickens at her because they want her to catch it, and that'll be the picture, you know. And they're just trying everything they can to like make her react so they can get any other kind of picture. And then Liz Lemon goes in there and is like, I'm doing all of it. It's like, they take this picture of her and it's all the stuff. If you go back and look at those pictures from those conventions, all those black and white, like it's 2012, so it's all before, it's right when New 52 was going. Yeah. You get like Scott's picture, and Scott's like this, you know. It's like everybody's picture is like relatively, like Brian Azzarello is just like, I'm here, take my picture, and walk away, you know. Like everybody has these very like stoic, like James is just standing there happy, you know. It's like everybody has these like stoic little pictures. And I think a couple of like Grant's picture is probably the coolest one where Grant is doing magic. Yes, I know that picture. Yeah. And then you get to me, and I'm this dummy, like, it's so silly. And then everybody used that picture for 10 years for every little thing I did.
If you
like, this is the
Google
picture
Joshua
for
Williamson and you pick up a picture, it's the only one that's like large. It's the only big picture. I felt so bad when we
It's the
first started doing
only- yeah.
interviews. I was like, well, I'll put a picture of Josh Williamson. I got that black and white picture, and I'm like, all right. And then I'm like, well, we did another one, and I'm like, well, I can't use that one, but there's literally no other freaking image.
Yeah, that's why I finally took a picture of myself and put it on the internet, because I was like, and I started giving it to people when they ask if I do anything. I'm like, here is the actual picture.
Here's the photo, please.
Also, that picture is, yeah, you're talking about that's 2012, so it's an older picture, So I'm like, oh, let's be a little more representative of what I look like now.
Yeah, no beard.
I have a beard, I gained some weight, so I'm like, let's just go with what I actually look like. I'm not this dude who's like 30 anymore, so it's okay. Like, I'm not embarrassed by my age. Let's not do that. But also, I'm like, I don't want to have this. Like,
you don't want to do that anymore.
What are you gonna do? But it's funny. I don't know. I laugh about it, but it is something that haunts me. I feel like the day I die, and if a website runs my obituary, that's going to be the picture they put up. And it's just, you know what? At this point, I own it.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how it is. Yeah, I think there's no way you're going to miss it. And I'm just, at the same time, you can tell I'm smiling. I was just so happy to be there. Like,
oh, sure.
I had this dream of working at DC Comics, and I finally got there. So I was just so happy to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was all downhill from there. And we can talk about that in another video. Like, that picture was taken, and then it was just like,
oh.
And then I left DC for like 3 years, 3 or 4 years. We can talk about that next time.
All right, cool.
We can talk about the dark time. There was a moment.
Yeah,
my creator own books blew up in that time period. But it was definitely a moment where I was like, oh, my career is over. We can talk about that next time. We can get into the whole, when I thought my career was over.
Yeah. Especially because we can look at it in hindsight and go like, no, it didn't,
dude, I thought I was never coming back. Yeah, let's talk about that next time. We'll save it.
I love it.
About that window, because I think that window it actually feeds into a thing, and maybe I'll leave this with people who are watching this. I have this theory about creators, and it is this thing I made up. It's like a thing that like Joseph Campbell, it's very much in the hero's journey. And there's this book, it's called The Writer's Journey, and it kind of talks about how when you're a writer, you kind of go through the same process as the hero's journey in a lot of ways, right? And it's really fascinating. And one of the stages of the hero's journey is called Belly of the Whale. And it's this moment where the hero, like Pinocchio, they go into a location where the outside world thinks they're gone, right? They might as well be dead. And the outside world doesn't know what's going on with them. And then they don't know what's going on in the outside world. Right, it's Luke going into the cavern,
the cave,
right, and being in front of it. Yeah, or in that same movie, it's them going into the that big worm in space. Oh
yeah, the space slug. Yeah,
and they're separated in that moment. They actually don't know what's going on with each other in that moment, right?
That's right.
But I find this to be a fascinating moment for writers, and I think all writers need to go through this in their process of becoming a writer. At some point, you kind of have to go into the belly of the whale, and you have to kind of shut everything off for a minute, because there's so much going on as a writer. Like, there's so much part of this business. There's so many pieces of this that's different than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago, 40. It's a different industry. But this is true of almost all mediums. And I think that all writers need to have a moment where they kind of just like take a deep step back. And you're lucky if it's by choice. If you're able to say, hey, listen, I'm going to go away for a second and not be a part of the scene or whatever. Like, you're still around. But I think it's good to every once in a while sort of take a step back, right? Like, they talk about how, trees, right? Like, trees grow in silence. You don't hear a tree grow.
Right.
You hear when it crashes, but you don't hear it grow. And so every once in a while, you got to do that. You got to kind of like, I'm going into the woods, I'm going to the cave, I'm going to the belly of the whale, whatever it is for you. And I think as a writer, you have to do that every once in a while, and you have to sort of shut everything off and go into the belly of the whale. So a lot of my friends know we talk about this every once in a while. I have this theory. I've heard people get really worked up of like, oh, I'm leaving this book, or I'm leaving this, or things are slowing down. Or, I have friends that are like, I'm not going to have any books in the stand for a long time. And I'm like, that's okay. Like, it's okay to sometimes take a step back from everything and just sort of, like, shut it all off and just kind of get into just the writing part of it and just figuring stuff out. And I'm lucky that I got to go through it when I went through it. And I talked about other writers. There's another writer I know who went through a very similar experience to me. And we were just talking about this recently. And he went into the belly of the whale, but then he came out the other side not only a better like person, a better writer, but the projects they've done since then have really blown up. And it's like, so last time I saw him, we talked about this. He was like, yeah, when I was in it, you feel bad. You're like, oh, I failed.
Right.
And it's like, no, it's okay. Like, it's all right to go in the belly of the whale. This is part of that hero's journey. You know,
yeah.
You come out the other side changed. And grown. Yeah, I think that's something that all writers, and not just writers, creative people in general, and maybe this thing. I can't speak to like everybody in the world going through this moment, but I think from a creative level, that everyone should go into the belly of the whale at some point and just shut it all off, because there's so much going on. And not only so much going on for you, but like people constantly, you know, you're constantly a part of like putting books out, putting stuff out, and doing stuff. It's okay to just like ease off and just sort of focus on the stuff in front of you and the plate. Dan Udio had this. One time I was talking to Dan, we were having breakfast, and I was like, you know, we were just talking about comics and about what I was working on at the time, and I was like, what is a criticism you have of my work? Because I'm not afraid of criticism, so I'm like, what is something about my work at DC that bothered you? And he said this thing, and I think about this to this day. He was like, I think sometimes you worry about next year more than this year. Like you worry way too much about what's going on 6 months from now, 10 months from now, what's next instead of what's right in front of you. He's like, I can see it sometimes where we meet up and I'm not talking about the script I'm writing today or the script I'm writing this month or the work I'm doing in this moment. I'm asking questions about like, what's the plan for next year? What are we doing with this? How's this going? Oh, I have an idea for this thing 2 years from now. It's going to be this, and this. And he was like, sometimes I wish you would stay more today. Like, what is in front of you today? And so I think that's all the time in DC, because I obviously talk about stuff that's planned out for long distances. But my entire day cannot be planning that far out. I got to plan forward. Today, so every once in a while, I shut everything off. And I go into like a temporary bailing just so I can write those scripts, just so I can get those scripts done and get that work done.
And be in that moment.
Yeah, it's cool if I'm writing this book and I'm like, yo, I got a plan for issue 20.
Right.
But issue 1 isn't there.
Because there's not going to be an issue 20.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you have to do that once in a while. But anyway, next time we'll talk about that whole time period, because I think it is an interesting thing to get into. Of like,
I agree.
For me, at least my career, but I think writers in general, these weird moments where things kind of dip off for a second in surprising ways, and I think you look at it as a negative. Like, no, there's a positive thing here too. I'll leave you with this one. Like, look at Hickman. Like Hickman, you know, he basically left Marvel between Secret Wars and X-Men.
Yep.
And he did other stuff in the meantime. He created own books, he worked on other things. But I think that, dude, it obviously grew Hickman. Like it added to like who Hickman is, like, you know, his like superstar quality, that time period being gone actually added to it. It didn't take away from it. Yeah. And I think that's a good example of like why it's okay every once in a while to go into the belly.
Yeah. It's not unlike Star Wars, with the scarcity of Star Wars, with like, make it go away. So that when it comes back, it's bigger, it comes back with a roar.
So I'm going to give you this. This is the one I always laugh about. I'm going to tell you this one. This goes into the whole like take it away, give it back thing. And I understand there's differences to this because of different reasons. But and actually, I never noticed something. I'm going to show you something really funny. And we should probably end with this. All right. So this is one of the examples I always use for people. Death of Superman, one of the biggest comics of all time. Arguably, right? Can't do it. You can't really see right here because of the glare in my office. The price tag is $250. Yeah. $250. The Return of Superman. Return of Superman. $295.
Yep.
Also, at this moment, end on this. I never knew this until today. I've never put this together until this exact moment. It comes with a Bloodlines trading card.
Oh, hey!
I never knew it until I looked at this now.
Wow.
Oh my god. I haven't looked at this in so long. It has the 400 Superman, but it's a Bloodlines trading card on it.
Yeah.
Dude, it's so funny.
It also has that weird decal with like John's hand reaching, and I'm like, what am I going to put this on?
Oh, I know. Yeah, there was all, but that we were talking about that before. About there was a Superman Lobo comic that was
with all the stickies.
On. Yeah, dude, I love that one. It was so much fun. But then you lose all those stickies in it. So.
Oh yeah.
Anyway. We should stop there.
Well, All Stars, check us out next month. But of course, if you haven't already, make sure to catch Batman and Robin. It's coming. What's the
September? It's a long way away.
Well, yeah.
So you actually should buy Yeah,
Green
Superman,
Arrow.
Green Arrow, and Night Terrors first, and then you could.
Yes.
But definitely Predator, Batman, and Robin. But that's September. It's a while from now.
Yeah. So right now you can enjoy. Go check out Night Terrors, Green Arrow, and Superman, which is going strong. Reigning endorsement. My wife read the most recent issue and was like, "Holy shit!" Like she was like, "This is cool." Good. Like, and she doesn't like Superman. She likes Superman, but she doesn't like to read the book. She's like, "Yeah, But she read this one. She was like, "This is tight." And I'm like,
awesome.
"All right."
I'm glad.
But check us out next time. Of course, catch Josh, and we'll see you guys here on ComicPop Returns. So long, everybody.